What if Madara Uchiha became the first Hokage of Konoha instead of Hashirama Senju? How different would the world of Naruto be if Hashirama Senju got his way and Madara was chosen to be Hokage over himself? Would things turn out for better or would they turn out for worse? In this edition of Naruto What If, we're going to take a look at just that scenario. In order for this to happen, a few things have to change, which ultimately means the part of the timeline where Madara returns to Konoha with the Kyuubi in tow to challenge Hashirama Senju never happens. Instead, our trigger point is going to be the moment right after Tobirama tells Hashirama that he feels the village will never support Madara as Hokage. Originally, when he was chosen, Hashirama accepted the position and Madara left, vowing revenge. In this scenario, Hashirama would stand firm in his conviction, telling everyone that Madara is the best person to fit the role of Hokage, and if they truly believed in him as much as they said they did, then they should believe him when he says that Madara is the ideal leader for the Hidden Leaf Village. Despite the rumors spreading around the village that hatred is what fueled the Sharingan's power, as stated during this part of the manga, Hashirama would further smooth things over by declaring that he will become Madara's aide as Hokage. This ultimately would smooth things over, paving the way for the next set of events. Over the years that follow, Madara would have to win over the hearts and minds of the villagers, the very same people who didn't want him to become Hokage. Having Hashirama at his side could help the process, but ultimately it would be up to Madara to win everyone's trust. Despite being a reincarnate of Indra, I don't think that Madara would rule by force right away. For the logic of this, look at Naruto chapter 625, where you clearly see Hashirama tell Madara that it's because he lost his family that becoming Hokage is the best option for him, because the village would become his family, and that he didn't need to worry about not being able to protect the village because that is why he would make a good leader. Madara shared the very same dream as Hashirama, wanting a village where young children didn't have to know the horrors of war, and we now know from Hashirama's conversation with Sasuke that there was peace in the village long enough for the younger generation to grow old enough to drink alcohol. Seeing the next generation grow to become adults, something that his brothers weren't able to do, would spark a change in Madara. However, we also have to take into account that we do know that by the time that he would have become Hokage, according to chapter 626, Madara had already read the Uchiha tablet that was manipulated by Zetsu. In the back of his mind, what was written on that tablet would always linger, pitting the change in Madara against the doubts growing in his mind after reading the tablet. We know that after Konoha was founded, that the other villages were formed as well, since rival clans saw the benefit of forming a union, which would ultimately lead to the First Great Ninja War, where violence got so intense that originally Hashirama offered to give tailed beasts that he had captured to the other villages as a way to offer peace. If Madara Uchiha was Hokage, there's no way that Madara offered the Biju under Konoha's control to any of the villages, which it should be noted that Hashirama had several Biju under his control, at least 5 since he offered to hand them off to the other villages, and by this point in the timeline we know that the One Tails was confirmed to already be in possession of the Hidden Sand Village. Because Madara had read the tablet, he would want to hold on to the Biju, and now knowing where the One Tails is located would be too tempting for him to ignore. Let's be real for a second. Madara is not bowing his head to beg for peace like Hashirama did. The moment things got too aggressive where talks started to break down, Madara is likely to display a show of power to the other Kages and putting them in their place, likely whipping out his perfect Susanoo and staring down at them. Because Hashirama was the one who pushed to have Madara named to be Hokage, I do think he would at least allow Madara the chance to steer the village while also offering him counsel, nor would he undermine Madara by offering the Biju as a way for potential peace with the other villages. With the First Great Ninja War continuing on as it did in this part in the timeline, there would be a major change. Because the other Biju wouldn't be handed over to the other villages, Konoha will be in possession of several Biju, including the most powerful of them all, the Nine-Tailed Fox. An army led by Madara Uchiha and being backed by several Biju would overwhelm the great nations. At this point, Madara would move to capture the One Tails, since he would know its location, which would deliver a crippling blow to the Hidden Sand Village. At this point, Hashirama and Madara would come to a disagreement over Madara's increased hostility and the change occurring inside of him, likely due to Madara being the reincarnate of Indra, prompting Hashirama to confront Madara after the war was over, since doing so in the midst of a war would be a bad idea. However, because we know that Hashirama died part of the way through the Ninja War, it's very likely that Hashirama would die due to natural causes before the first Great Ninja War ends, just as he did originally. With no Hashirama there to check his impulses, Madara would move swiftly to end the war, controlling the Biju with his Sharingan and using his perfect Susanoo to destroy whoever stood in his way. With how far Madara had taken things, there wouldn't be a second 5 Kage summit like there was originally in this part of the timeline, which is where the Gold and Silver brothers attacked Tobirama and the other Kages. At some point, if Madara is confronted by the Gold and Silver brothers, then he would absolutely demolish them in a fight. After the war, Madara would demand additional land and resources from the other great nations, which would lead to more bad blood between the nations, but ultimately lead to Konoha becoming much stronger military-wise. Madara would also know that having Hashirama's DNA would be vital to awakening the Rinnegan, which is why at some point during the war, I believe he would have taken DNA right from under Hashirama's nose, but due to how long it took him to awaken Rinnegan, Madara wouldn't awaken it right away. With his brother dead, Tobirama would feel more of a sense of urgency to stop Madara, who would now be much more like Indra that was in the filler arc in Naruto Shippuden, ruling through fear and force. Tobirama would enlist the help of Mito Uzumaki, who we did know helped Hashirama in the battle against Madara. However, if Madara didn't send out the numerous Biju under his control, then a battle with Tobirama will still turn out like the following scene that you're about to see. With Tobirama now dead, and likely Mito being dead as well, Madara would stand unopposed, even without having 6 Biju under his control. It's very possible that the Senju clan breaks free of Konoha, but I could also see them staying, and Madara forcing them to live under the same oppression that the Uchiha clan endured. The remaining 4 villages would be scrambling to collect the other 3 Biju for themselves, with the hope of standing up against Konoha. However, it remains possible that Madara would want to hunt down the remaining Biju for himself. On one hand, during the nearly 2 decades between the first and second Great Ninja War, the other villages would form an alliance to survive Konoha's growing power, or you could see an arms race growing between the remaining villages for the final 3 Jinchuriki, and this would likely follow afterwards. Given Madara's personality, I see no reason why he wouldn't begin the hunt for the final 3 Biju. If he did manage to collect the remaining Biju, then I could see a scenario where Madara Madara, who would now be in his mid-40s, which means he wouldn't have the Rinnegan yet, would go back on his treaty that he made with the other villages after the First Great Ninja War. We have to remember that Madara had already shown in the past, back when Hashirama Senju was Hokage, that treaties meant absolutely nothing to him, like when he attacked Inoki, and Inoki was begging him saying that Hashirama had a treaty, and Madara said, "I'm Madara of the Uchiha clan," and proceeded to lay the smackdown on Inoki. Madara would rule over the ninja villages by force now that he has all 9 Biju under his control, likely killing each of the Kage in each village in a very public manner in order to keep anyone from rising against him. By this point, if he hadn't done so already, I could see Madara having a child with some random woman from Konoha. If during the next 20 years the Second Great Ninja War still happens, then it would turn out much differently. Originally, Hiruzen Sarutobi was stated to be the one who started the Second Great Ninja War. In this scenario, Madara would already be in control, which means any other village that would rise up against Madara would do so at their own risk. I could see this happening since Madara would now be in his late 60s. Some of the younger generation could be arrogant enough to think that they could stand up to Madara now that he's older and way past his prime, much in the same way that Orochimaru thought that he could stand up to a 70-year-old Hiruzen Sarutobi. However, it's at this point in the timeline that we do know that Madara did awaken the Rinnegan, which means that if his son wasn't powerful enough to end the war by himself, then Madara would step in and spam his Rinnegan jutsu to end the ninja war, likely ripping out the souls of Hanzo if the Hidden Rain village is still being used as a battlefield, which means that there will be no legendary Sannin. Those who led the rebellion against Madara would also suffer a very similar fate. Madara would now be convinced that this world couldn't be a world of peace without the infinite Tsukiyomi, which means that Madara would likely now use his Rinnegan to summon the Gedo statue and seal away each of the Biju that are in his possession. It would likely be here that Zetsu would make his move to revive Kaguya, which would happen a full 30 years sooner than it did originally, 14 years before Naruto and Sasuke were ever born. Well guys, that's it for this What If. Those of you who were with me on the Kryptonian Saiyan channel know that there's a version of this story that's drastically different than the one that you guys see right here in this video, and the one that was made in 2017 is a lot longer than this one, which I still have up on the Kryptonian Saiyan channel. The reason for all the changes is that when I first made the original video back in 2017, I was too worried that people would be turned off at the thought of Madara being seen through the lens of a total tyrant, because at this time the YouTube channel was growing at a really great rate. Looking back at it, I feel like it was a mistake, and I feel like, just as advice to any up and coming YouTubers, make the content you want to make. Don't worry about whether or not people get turned off, because for everyone who doesn't like your content for what you're doing, there's always going to be someone who does appreciate it or appreciates your honesty and your sincerity when you do it. Now, just as a side note, I'm almost done with that What If Naruto Married Sakura Part 2 video. So that video is coming as promised since it hit the required number of likes. But as always guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Have an awesome day guys.